Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles, coming to you from an altitude of 5,280 feet, which is where you will be in September of 2023 for Mile High 11. Yes, believe it or not, these go to 11. And some of you may know what that means. So make sure you reserve your seats at riseuptomilehigh.com so you rise up this fall to mile high altitude. And speaking today as our guest on the Mile High podcast is the one and only Matthew Mancuso, who is a frequent Mile High attendee and was called to be a chiropractor as a culmination of his own personal adventure in healing. And also he is a graduate of Life West and a NetworkSpinal practitioner in the Northeast, Ohio specifically. And grateful to have him joining us today on the podcast. As you know, he's joined us at Mile High and breakouts and on the stage multiple times. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Matthew Mancuso.
It's a pleasure to be here as always, Danny.
Well,
definitely, you are one who always goes up to 11. I think you still at 11.
Well, we're discovering 12 soon. So thank you for taking the time to be on the Mile High podcast today, and we'll share your wisdom relative to chiropractic practice. First of all, can you share a little about what's going on in your life and practice these days?
Well, what's going on in my life and practice these days? For starters, I currently have the best team I've ever had. It's truly amazing how much more fun, energizing, and just effortless practice becomes when you actually have a coherent team that's on point, on vision, on brand, and just so happy to be there. And when they can adult, Danny, I love it when they can adult. It's beautiful. There's so much happening there. And we've got an amazing associate doc right now who is kicking butt, taking names. And beyond that, my wife is applying to art school in the southwest of France because she always loves to keep my life interesting. So
that's Matthew Mancuso's life in a nutshell right now. Now let's get to know where that began. What share with us your journey, how you found your way into this world that we call chiropractic.
Well, how I found my way to this world, about when I was 3 years old, my mom told me I stared at the sky, pointing and asking, "Mom, which one of those am I from?" But this world called chiropractic, that was probably a culmination of that journey. Long story short, because this could go on. There's a long version and a short version. The short version is I had a lot of stuff going on with my health pretty much out of the womb, and nothing was touching it. I was going from doctor to doctor, person to person, and they couldn't quite figure out what was up with me. Then by the time I'm 12, also, I'm really stressed, and so I'm going from like counselor to counselor to figure out what's going on with me. By the time I'm 19, I'm just like not only just sick as a dog on all levels, but just completely annoyed with this world. So, I've been psychiatrically institutionalized a few times. By the end of that, I realized a fundamental thing, that when you keep looking for what's wrong with you, you'll find people who will help you answer that question, but the answer doesn't really give you the outcome you want, which is a better life, which is quality, which is that ability to just truly live the gift you were born to give. And so I started asking different questions, and that's when I stumbled into a chiropractor's office. And for a couple of years, he kept telling me, you should be a chiropractor. And I may have had amazing results by that point. I mean, the anxiety had dropped, the depression had dropped. I could actually see like there was a brighter future for me. I could digest food, like pizza was on the menu again, which was amazing. All this cool stuff was happening, but I was still, what's the word, young and dumb, stubborn? I was like, I don't want to be a chiropractor. I mean, that just seems a little weird. Mm-hmm. And so, while I'm doing tarot card readings in nightclubs and working as a drug rehab counselor, chiropractic had seemed weird. So after a couple of years, finally landed, what the heck am I doing? I need to be a chiropractor. And so I ended up at Life West over in California and haven't looked back.
Well, along that journey, or maybe it was after that point, when and where did you feel you got in the wavelength of the chiropractic principles?
There's a couple things that brought me into that.
It's one thing to get into chiropractic, and it's another thing to delve into principles and have a deeper understanding of what chiropractic is rather than your degree.
Said simply, it's one thing to go to chiropractic school. It's another thing to actually get chiropractic.
This is true. Yep.
This is true. Yeah. So, in the early quarters of Chiro school, because I ended up in Chiro school still thinking, all right, this will be a good foundation, and then I can launch from that to something else. I was exposed into, I was really lucky being at Life West that there were a nexus of all the different techniques and the science and the philosophy. And so early in the process, I was exposed to like two of the great influences in my life, Sue Brown and Donnie Epstein. And, both of them, like, from that exposure in the clubs early on, I had this sense of, wow, chiropractic, it's more than just, pop and pray. It's more than just, like get him out of pain. There was this evolutionary principle that came into it. This, wow, what didn't kill you makes you stronger. Wow, your body's actually smart. Wow, if you work with what's smart in someone, it gets smarter. And so they actually can get better from all the challenges that happen and more innately express who they were born to be. So as a overall concept, I was getting that earlier on by exposure to, again, Sue Brown and Donnie Epstein. To really get the meat of the principles, though, that involved me bumping into this weirdo, Danny Knowles, who I have to be honest, Danny, before
Weirdo is accurate.
Yeah, it's true. I had copies of the green books on the shelves before I met you. I actually started looking at them after I started getting to know you, because getting to know you helped me really get that connection between not just this big quantum physics evolutionary principle, but holy shit, this is part. Can I say shit in Mile High Podcast? I just said shit. Okay,
Yeah,
well, here we
can.
are.
You might have said it 3 times there.
Magic comes in threes. So, but holy crap, like this stuff that actually the roots of chiropractic have always been expressing this.
Yeah.
It's always been there. We just forgot. And so it made it even more exciting to dive into like the history, the philosophy, to get into like Simon Senzon's work. The man is a freaking genius at the history and the roots of chiropractic. And so basically getting to know you helped me even more deeply fall in love with chiropractic. And so then I start showing up at Mile High, and there's all these people who are like talking this Green Book stuff. But Green Book in the context also of tonal practice, which made it exciting. You ever feel like the weirdo in the room, Danny? You go to these places that have like the principle of chiropractic, but you're like one of the tonal folks. You're especially a network kid, and they're like,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Never experienced that.
Obviously, yeah, cool. Life has been just walk in the park, sunshine and roses.
So that is all super interesting and intriguing. That brings us to this next layer, which is, where did that all culminate into bringing that into life and practice? It's one thing to be a book or a seminar or a concept, but then actual where chiropractic lives is in the practices that deliver it. So then where did that bring into practice?
Two different answers there, life and practice. I'll start with life. I'll go to practice. Is that fair?
Sure.
Groovy. I don't know if it's a fundamental quirk of me, but if I talk about something, I want to make sure I'm living it. Mm-hmm. And so since the more I was exposed to the chiropractic principles, the more I wanted to make sure my life was an expression of that, was a reflection of that. Because to me, how can you sell something if you don't own it, Danny? Mm-hmm. How can you actually truly sell this principle of chiropractic? We can talk the words all day long, but the key is, how do we actually live that in our being? And so maybe it's a Matthew quirk, but to me, it's like, if I'm talking something, I want to make sure my life reflects it. The big gap was between that concept of me as a person, making sure I was getting adjusted regularly, making sure that my relationship to my own body and its symptoms and its challenges was from a vitalistic perspective of, what is it trying to teach me right now? How is my body expressing health? But then looking at practice through that lens, that was an adventure. That was a little different. I also didn't know where to toggle my practice. That made it a little tricky.
And what do you mean by that?
How to actually adjust it, how to make sure it was free of interference and expressing its innate vital principle. So for me, I don't know, to me, the life part was just a fundamental thing of me. I want to make sure I'm living authentically and authentically expressing this. But practice, I didn't know how the heck to close that gap. And so that, I think, where it actually started expressing more in practice was, again, this weirdo who I'm talking to right here. meeting you, because I realized how to actually be able to get a sense of how to do an exam on my practice, initial examination to assess. Really, I mean, how do you know where to adjust if you haven't done an exam? And that's a whole other conversation. So, but yeah, I'd like to be able to do an exam on my practice to see how is it currently expressing health? How is its innate signature playing out? How can I actually take a pulse of it? How can I assess and see, is there a break in the pattern? Where is it subluxated? Where is it vital? And to see how that's actually working, to realize it wasn't just a perception, but actually there are like structures and behaviors. There are ways of actually assessing the form of it to see how it's working. And also to be able to get a sense of how to work it better. Not to just do the thing in practice, which tends to be allopathic. We notice there's a challenge in a certain area of our practice. There's a pain point. Oh, I don't have enough new patients, or oh, no one's staying long enough. And so then we get very allopathic and start treating the pain. But to instead actually look at what's the actual integrity of the whole system. How is its nerve system? How is its innate system working, and how to adjust that, dude? That was one of the great gifts I had exploring LWP. And so it really helped close the gap between where I was personally in my relation to chiropractic and professionally.
So it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, it sounds like shifting from your practice being a hobby to actually being a business.
To actually get how the business of Chiro works. Yeah. I mean, and in a way that the business is congruent with Chiro. I mean, we're not a taco stand. You can't use the same principles.
Some of them will cross over, but not all of them.
Tacos are delicious. Chiropractic is delicious. This is true.
Well, and if you get tacos on Tuesday and get adjusted on Tuesday, it's a pretty good Tuesday. So maybe even extraordinary, depending on the adjustment and quality of tacos. So now with that, then with practice, accountability. What role do you feel accountability plays in being successful in practice?
It is the primary thing for being successful in literally everything to do with chiropractic, not limited to, but including practice. Yes.
Okay.
I think accountability is absolutely essential.
And where is that important? Let's start with clinically. What are ways to be accountable clinically?
This is the question that actually steered me into practicing network, because I loved these principles in chiropractic. I loved the philosophy we talked about, this vitalistic expression, this evolutionary potential, how innate is striving onward and upward towards perfection and can use universal forces as fuel to actually become even more itself. And it's one thing to talk a talk, nice story, and a cool concept, a cool story plus 450 will buy you a latte. How do you actually know it's working? And so how does accountability show up in clinical practice? First and foremost, you need outcome measures, because if you haven't defined your outcome measures, it's always going to be, do they feel better, which goes back to pain, which goes back to congratulations, you're an allopath. Sorry, it's just fact. And so actually, like, one of the things I adore is making sure that what I'm measuring is congruent with what I want to do. That's why in my office, I measure the function of the nerve system and how the nerve system itself is adapting to change, adapting to life. Because if I'm talking that, I want to make sure I'm measuring it to see, is it happening? So having a solid initial exam, and also, oh my gosh, actual re-exams. I know there's this idea that, every day is a re-exam. Every time I touch them is a re-exam. Cool. Yes, on a certain level, you're seeing how they've changed. You're seeing what they did with what you did the visit before. And so I should hope that you're doing, like, every visit before you adjust them, assessing to see what did they do with what happened last time. But also periodic objective re-exams. Our hands are good. Yes? Yes. Can our hands improve?
Yes.
Yes. Our hands are linked to our own delightfully subluxated and quirky nerve system. So are they perfect?
No.
No. So something outside of your head to measure what's happening, super vital. So I think clinical accountability starts with having a solid, like, initial exam, solid re-exams. Like, don't be afraid to look. I mean, you can be afraid to look, but then be courageous enough to do it anyway. I think that's important because I remember it's something that you taught me. What was it? The first time you brought in an X-ray unit. What were you afraid of?
Sucking.
Yes, exactly.
That was it. I was afraid that we suck. So yeah, and it's a valid concern. And here's the thing: the person is paying you hard-earned money and time and energy to see you, and holding that bar that you are actually delivering what you're saying deliver. Most businesses in some way need to do that, and pretty much most industries. And here's the next question, a follow-up question to that: do the people you see value that and appreciate it?
The majority do. There's always that small percentage that are like, oh, why do you have to measure anything? And they're not always the ones who get the best results either.
Mm-hmm.
Fair.
They're also not necessarily the ones that are engaged the most.
Right. The gross majority deeply appreciate that I care enough to make sure I'm delivering what I said I'd deliver.
Right.
It earns that most vital of currencies. The almighty dollar is beautiful. It's still secondary to that currency of trust. Because having that process of actually that clinical accountability, that you talk a good talk and you're willing to put your reputation on the line to check and see if it worked, and you're willing, if you didn't see what you wanted, to be able to have a strong conversation as to, okay, here's how we're going to modify things to make it better, so we better tailor things to you. When they know that it's always tailored to them based on what's happening in them, it earns that currency of trust, which there is nothing more valuable in my experience.
Right. Wow. Super important. So now, then, you have attended a number of Mile High weekends, if I remember right. How many do you think you've been at?
Well, half of my t-shirt wardrobe comes from Mile High or LWP programs. So,
So there's a decent number.
Yes.
Excellent. And what keeps you going back?
First of all, my favorite shirt is the one that you're currently wearing. That was still
it's mine too. Yeah.
Yes, the license to heal. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously one of the reasons I go back is the t-shirts. Yes.
Great.
Probably more than that, but just thought I'd okay, no, beyond the t-shirts, because it's not just the swag.
And you bring your team. So what do you gain from being at Mile High and bringing your team?
That's the thing. Yeah, I wouldn't bring my team if it was just the t-shirts. No, what I absolutely adore about Mile High, first of all, is the congruence. It's truly a place where, the philosophy, the science, and the art are actually all coming together. And it really is also, it's as you put it, like it's a big tent where pretty much all are welcome, as well as being a place where, let's be honest, where the tonal kids actually can get center stage, where it's actually a realization, as you put it so wonderfully, we do something so effing amazing. And is such an expression of the actual philosophy, of the actual principles of chiropractic. I love that we can go there and know that we are welcome, but we're freaking leading the way. So that's pretty cool. My team also comes with, because Mile High is so much more than just a rah, get your philosophical charge up and then hope it sustains. There's so much that we learn there that the whole team is taking home, like actionable principles, things that okay, attitude adjustments. Yes. Also business strategies. Yes. Outreach strategies. Yes. Ways of communicating with real live humans. Yes. Amazing science and stuff that you'll learn from Dr. Mo and whoever else is there presenting that. Yes. It's an opportunity to watch freaking Donnie do his crazy thing in the middle of the room and everyone's waving a cowbell trying to get people to go back to seats. Always part of the process.
Right. And we added to it having breakout sessions. You got to do a breakout session. How do you feel that added to Mile High?
It was a natural evolution of Mile High, because as I said, it's just Mile High is so much. Yes, it's a place where we can come together and remember we're not alone. Yes, it's a place that can recharge on our principles. And yes, it's got stuff to take home. And so it really added to the taking it home, so that you can keep the momentum going, that you don't just spend a weekend at altitude, but you can bring altitude down to sea level.
Excellent. Now, with talking to practice members that walk into your office, and I don't think this is really necessarily a technique or analysis question.
Yeah.
However, when you're practicing and you have people that walk into your office and they want to get adjusted without an exam, get adjusted that day, for that adjustment to be where they crack their back and they never have to come back another visit, and they don't want to pay for it, they want their insurance to pay for it, which that just describes about 95% of the people that will walk into a chiropractic office based on what they've seen on YouTube. With that being, how do you in practice navigate that?
How long do we have?
Let's give it 5 minutes.
Okay, that's awesome. How do you navigate that? Again, this is one of the pieces that I've enjoyed the most with LWP, because scripting. And it's one thing to recognize that, okay, like people are like, oh, I don't want scripts. I want to connect from the heart to the other heart. It's really nice when you can have that absolute certainty that when people come in and have those challenging questions, you have a way to be able to, shall we say, Obi-Wan Kenobi it into be able to connect to the person themselves. And also, these are not the droids you're looking for, because you recognize behind that question is a deeper question, isn't there? Behind every person coming in going, I'm in pain, it's just right here, just fix it, doc. Behind every person whose first words out of their mouth on the phone is, do you take my insurance? Is a real life person who has a real life challenge and has real life concerns about those challenges and wants to know, can you help? Beyond that, they want to know, can this be better? How much more is actually available to me? I need to know. They've been trained by our culture to come in and ask us those questions. They've unfortunately been trained by our profession to just assume, okay, you're just going to get a quick crack and you're going to feel better.
Right.
So to actually have those, to me, the short answer is systems. Systems to support that person who comes in with whatever they've already been trained to do, that 95% of the people, as you've said, who we could just immediately write off and go, oh, they just don't get it. And be able to connect to the part of them that does get it, that was hungry enough to actually reach out and call the witch doctors, aka us, to see if we could help. So having systems that actually help connect with the person as they are and then help move them down a road. Because good practice members aren't found, they're made. And so learning how to actually bring out that best in them. And if it's not actually for them, giving them the opportunity. Informed consent was a big deal over the past few years, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. So giving that person, after actually connecting with them, drawing them down a road, giving them the opportunity to know, this is what we do, this is what we don't. If this is what you want, beautiful, we're here to help.
And how, you are now one of our Lifetime Wellness Practice LWP mentors. Share a little bit about the journey from where you started, and you started attending, implementing some of the Lifetime Wellness Practice systems, and not just the systems, but the way of thinking for practice. From where you were then to your journey to now.
Okay. The short answer is the journey was a transition from connecting with people, describing everything about what we do, into that first visit being just connecting with them and who they are. And that was a game changer. And then having the systems to actually do that and then walk them down the road so that they start wondering more and more, wow, how is it this can help me get there? LWP, I started off again, chiropractors, we love what we do so much, don't we?
Right.
We love it so much. We just want to shout it from the rooftops and make sure every human on earth knows every part of the different steps of a subluxation and how that impacts every part of their health and life, and how every aspect of a spinal gateway can help them have so much more profound impact on all dimensions of reality. And when we started actually seeking chiropractic care, was that where we were?
Right. Right.
So how to actually connect more richly with where someone is, and then help them discover there's a gap between where they are and what more is possible. That was part of the art in LWP. So it helped me get a sense of how to shift from just that super enthusiastic chiropractor into a better servant of humanity that helps to actually, no matter where someone's coming from. One of the gifts I've had since, initially I was really good at connecting with people like me, and that's why I had a small practice. Because, apparently I'm not like the others. But but one of the gifts in LWP was then actually discovering how to better connect with people of all different walks of life. Same systems can work with so many different kinds of people. So the practice reflects more and more that of humanity. So instead of just connecting with people I already knew how to connect with, it was easier to, as you said before, good practices are built by word of mouth, but the best practices put their words in as many mouths as possible. And that's where marketing comes in. So developing actual outreach strategies that were congruent with our practice, developing like ways to actually help support that person from day one to grow into a lifetime practice member who's bringing all their friends and family into the office, who's going to transformational gates and to ultimatums and all that stuff. So I think the simplest version was when we actually talked and I was working all this stuff and just trying to shift my own state and my perception. And you're like, yeah, that's great, but do you have any outreach strategies?
Right. Because it's the magic marketing thing that will get people in the door.
Yeah, I was like, oh, outreach. Right. I should probably do that.
Right. So here's a vital thing relative to all of that, which is that now looking at where you are, is there a higher percentage of your people that are care that would be called, or you would term them, lifetime wellness practice members? Yes. Why do you say that?
Part of it is a numbers game. We're seeing nearly quadruple the people we were back then.
Okay.
And also, so it increases the odds of more of them converting. But beyond that, we're also checking our stats regularly. So I can tell how many of them are actually staying. Something fun about being able to look at that. Beyond that, we also now can tell at different stages in the process where they're at, where the weak points are coming up, so that we can best support that person at different stages, whether it's okay at 3 weeks in or 7 weeks in or 15 weeks in, or they're getting close to that beyond wellness exam. We now can tell like where the stuff's coming up, where they need that extra support. So we can better tailor our connection and process to them to support them on making that transition. Right. And so we're actually better at being in relationship with our practice members now. Good. Imagine having a relationship with your practice members. Yeah, without it having to take forever, because as you may have gathered, older version of me would have spent 5,000 hours talking with each one of them. So now, why is it important for people to have mentors? Well, why is it important to have anything in life, right? In anything in life. Say again? Why is it important to have a chiropractor rather than adjust yourself, Danny? Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. You need someone outside of you to see that sometimes. Right. To be able to really see those things beyond the scope. We live our lives through our nerve system. As Donnie puts so well, you don't see the world as it is, you see it as you are. And to have someone outside of you who can see what you can't see, and someone who's also further down the road. It's so good to associate with people who are further down the road on the journey you want to be on. Right. So that you don't have to reinvent the same mistakes. There's only a certain number of classic blunders that actually happen in our profession, certain kinds of mistakes. We're all different personalities. We tend to screw up real similarly. And so rather than repeating that, have someone who can actually see and support you to shorten the gap between, where you're at and finally fumbling your way to maybe getting it or failing. Right. Into being able to get it swiftly. Well, and also increasing your learning curve. Yeah, exactly. Instead of making the same mistakes or reinventing the wheel. Yeah. As well as there's that little word you alluded to earlier, accountability. The dirty A word. Yes. Because when you actually have someone else who you're accountable to, not just a circle of people at the same level who you all are working on the same things at the same time and complaining about the same things. And so there's not the forward momentum, but someone who actually is beyond you, who you're accountable to. It really shortens the learning curve. Because then not only are you like experiencing the things, but then you have that extra momentum, that extra fuel on the fire to do something about it, which is nice.
Excellent.
Because who likes having the same coaching call 5 weeks in a row?
So now, what is practice like for you? When you walk into your practice and you're caring for people, what is that like?
It's interesting because for so long I was wearing all of the hats.
That
it feels weird still. I mean, it's been a few years, but it still feels weird to walk in and be like, wow, my team's got this. I just walk up, I will lead a pre-shift meeting, so energize and inspire them, and then just take care of people. And then I'll get reports as to what's happening.
Right.
And it's that little part of me that used to micromanage everything is like, I need hobbies now. Or see more people. Like there's that extra freedom to go, wow, since I don't have to do everything alone, since I have all this support, since I have all these people who want to be here, since there's all these practice members who are actually practice members, they're actually participating. It's not just fancy name for patient. They actually want to be here. They're engaged. Wow. What do I do when things are working?
That is amazing. That's that's something that we call a quality problem.
Yes, indeed.
And that's what you want to get to, because you had a calling to be a chiropractor, to have a certain life experience, a certain level of joy. You wanted to give and to serve and love what you're doing. And there are things for you to gain out of it, right? And that has to come through on the other end of giving and serving efficiently, effectively, for everyone. So yeah, super, super important. Well, you're going to be on the main stage for Mile High this coming year. You're one of the Lifetime Wellness Practice mentors now, which is exciting. And actually, we didn't really officially announce that yet, so I guess it's officially announcing it here, but because we didn't send that out too much yet. And so that being said, what are you excited about being at Mile High this year?
For starters, again, I am so excited about my whole team being there, because every time the team is there, they are so more richly inspired when they come back to the office, because they get a sense of how it's not just a madman in a box with a vision, but there's all there's this whole crazy movement of mad people who are out there looking to truly change the world. Reggie was on something. If you ain't out to change the world, it's all just Mickey Mouse,
right?
And so to have that, because being at the place I'm at now, where the team is engaged, having them have that extra attitude adjustment and fire, holy crap, that is awesome. And then to me, always seeing having that chance for me to reconnect to people who are further along in the vision, to inspire me to keep growing, because as far as I can look back and see how far I've come, but compared to what must be next, there's still so much more.
Right.
And so it lifts me up every time I go there.
And at the same time, you do need a little Mickey Mouse in your life.
Yeah, you do need a little Mickey Mouse. It's true. It's true. Change the world and enjoy some Mickey Mouse.
Right. So, and so we are super excited to have you there at Mile High this year, and everyone to be at Mile High this year. Matthew, thank you so much for up-leveling your ability to change spines, lives, and minds, and for showing up for chiropractic students and chiropractic doctors to help them experience life through their chiropractic calling at a new level, which is really a great thing to do, and the world needs more of that. So, and we look forward to seeing you at Higher Ground when these go to 11. Is there anything else, lastly, you want to share with the chiropractic audience here?
Just always remember, being of service can be so much fun. Making a difference in the world can be so much fun.
The other F word.
Yes.
Well, excellent. Well, we look forward to seeing everybody on Higher Ground, September 21st, 24th. Reserve your seats if you haven't yet, and reserve your plane tickets, your hotel. Just know the best party on the planet, or at least the best party at Mile High Altitude in September, is going to be Mile High Chiropractic Movement. And we look forward to seeing you there.
Can't wait, Danny.